Hector Stephenson joins us for Piccadilly Talks. He is the Executive Director of the Overseas Examinations Commission. How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you.
We're very happy to have this conversation with you about careers and how they've changed over the years.
Yeah.
At one point, it was a linear trajectory. You did
Right.
one thing, then the other thing, then the other thing.
Right.
But that's no longer the case. Careers are no longer linear.
Right.
What's the major difference?
Yeah. Well, I think we have to start with qualifications. I went to Frankfield High School, now Edwin Allen Comprehensive.
I was wondering
I'm sure
about
everybody
that.
inside here knows about Edwin Allen Comprehensive
Yes.
High School. And it was one of two comprehensive high schools in Jamaica. And, it was a very diversified population. We had perhaps at the time 900 students. It's about 2,400 now, the largest high school in Jamaica. But what was interesting about Edwin Allen is that every child who went there could find his or her niche because there was something for everybody, and that's why it was called a comprehensive high school. You had the academic, you had the industrial technology, you had home economics, needlework, sewing, agriculture, and everything. Everybody could find their niche, and pretty much we were sort of corralled into our particular area. I did the sciences when I went to Edwin Allen High School. That was the concept of the comprehensive high school. That has changed significantly now, that students are not corralled into particular career areas of studies. And so with that, we have the diversity of careers. So it was back then that way, but it has changed significantly. When I went to St. George's College as a young teacher, there were streams of students who did the sciences only, and then those who did the business. Again, that has changed. So we have to go back to the way the qualifications have changed and the way the careers have lined up. But this is also the information and communication age. There's been an explosion of knowledge. People can learn online, they can go on Google, they can go on YouTube. So there are many ways to learn. And because of that, people are finding careers that you would not normally think about back then, 30, 40 years ago.
You are so correct. At the helm of the OEC since 2003, you
Correct.
must have been able to see that change happening in our landscape.
Absolutely.
And would have had to be adjusting your offerings and your ways of doing business to meet those changes with the students as they came out of high school and went on to pursue these careers that were no longer so linear. What are some of the differences in terms of how you approach certification here at the OEC that matches that non-linear trajectory?
Well, I have to clarify that a little bit, because OEC is a proctoring body. It really does not produce qualifications. The qualifications are in fact produced by the examining bodies, CXC being the major one, and then there is Cambridge. But if Go ahead.
Mr. Stephenson?
Yes.
What do you mean by a proctoring body? What does that even mean?
We administer the examinations.
So you are the facilitators.
We are the go-between. The candidates sit in the examinations, and the examining bodies, they actually produce the exams. And of course, the schools or universities, they provide the learning environment for the candidates. We ensure that the candidates sit their examinations in a comfortable environment. We ensure that the integrity of the exams are maintained, that the exams results are reliable, and that the results that you get are fair and just. So our job is to ensure that we carry out the mandate of the examining bodies, which is to bring qualifications to the youngsters.
When you think about some of the things you offered earlier on in your tenure and some of the offerings that you have now in terms of what you proctor, what are some of the major differences that indicate the change in how persons look at their career trajectory?
Well, I will start with some of what CXC call the new generation subjects. So, you know, traditionally people doing math, English, physics, chemistry, biology, agricultural science, and so on. And of late, a few years ago, CXC introduced what they call the new generation subjects, where they were looking at industry. And so they introduced things like financial management and green engineering and logistics and supply chains and so on into the curriculum. And of course, there's law, which would not normally be offered at the secondary level. So we've seen the offerings changing to match what is happening out there. You know, again, we really don't play a major role in that. What we do is to ensure that candidates have access to these qualifications. So we ensure that they are aware of what is being offered and that there are these opportunities.
When we think about those opportunities which you bring to the feet of the young people, and the part you play in preparing them for the future, how important is it for young people to begin to consider not only what they sit at the CXC level and the certifications they will need, but to begin to consider what other kinds of certifications they will need to prepare for the future?
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I go back to where I started, that the diverse offerings. One of the characteristics of the Jamaica education system for many years is that kids went into early specialization, and early specialization has some disadvantages. If you have ever studied in the United States, you get a broad-based general education at the bachelor's level. And you don't really start to specialize until you get into a master's or a PhD. That's sometimes where you specialize. We have been specializing from grade 9. Students are locked into the sciences. But that has some serious disadvantages, because when you do that, it means that you narrow your career opportunities. And I was a principal at St. George's College. I hired somebody from Jamaica to teach physics. But then when he got there, he said, I said, you know what, the physics vacancy is closed. Will you teach mathematics? He said, no, I am not able to teach mathematics. I found it a little strange, because to be able to be a good physics teacher, you needed to know mathematics. But that's just an example of our early specialization. But I think with the diverse offerings now in the school system, young people are pretty much exposed to. And we know, for example, to get into law, you can use science subjects to get into law. You don't have to do history and sociology and geography. There was a time when you had to line them up. You don't have to line them up anymore. You can do a whole diverse set of things. I remember 2 youngsters from St. George's College who became Rhodes Scholars, very brilliant young men, and they both did the sciences. And in fact, when I spoke to one of them some time ago, he said he did fuzzy physics at Oxford University. Yeah, it was so fuzzy I could not understand it, as a matter of fact. And I did physics, but that's the level of physics that he did. But when he came back to Jamaica, he was working in the investment sector. He was working in finance.
So certainly that example is really a nice way to cap out how diverse the market is,
precisely,
and how we have to begin to think of broad opportunities and certifications.
Precisely.
Some persons think, Mr. Stephenson, that the OEC only proctors Caribbean Examinations Council examinations, but I don't believe that to be the case.
Absolutely not.
Tell us, sir, in summary, what are some of those offerings that you have that meet the demand for non-linear careers?
Well, traditionally we have offered all the secondary level examinations. OEC, actually, it's we only started doing the regional exam in 1979. Prior to that, and in fact, the OEC was set up by the University of Cambridge and London. And the first exam was done at the Institute of Jamaica, 1827.
Oh,
my
goodness.
Long time ago.
You've come a long way from the 1800s.
We have come a long way from the 1800s. But the truth of the matter is we do a wide range of qualifications here at the OEC. And so many youngsters have studied on their own. A lot of the persons in law today, and some of our journalists, they did their exams right here at the OEC. They studied on their own, some of them, or they went to tutoring and so on, but they did their exams right here. So in addition to the secondary level examinations, CSEC and CAPE, and it used to be the GC London, and you probably would not have known that. You're too young to know about the GC London O levels and the A levels and the Cambridge London, Cambridge A levels and O levels, you probably did.
Would you like to mention some of the ones that you think I would be more familiar with? The one for the younger people nowadays.
The CSEC examinations and the CAPE examinations is the one that you would have done.
And outside of that, certain qualifications for professional study, for certain other professional qualifications as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I want to go on to say that we do proctor a wide range of professional exams. We have our IT platform. We do a number of Pearson VUE exam, Pearson VUE regular, Pearson VUE select. There is a platform called Criterion. Over 100 universities offer exams on that platform. We're now doing the IELTS examination. This is the International English Language Testing System examinations for persons who want to go into Canada and need English as a second language. And all of that is computer based, and that's done here at the OEC. In fact, we have the most stations for computer exams here in Jamaica.
Wow.
More than the University of the West Indies.
You know, Mr. Stephenson, your own career was not one that was linear or is linear. You've taken quite an unconventional approach, some may say, to your own professional development. We want to hear a little bit more about that. Well,
you know, like I said, I went to Edwin Allen and I did the sciences, Frankfield High School. And I actually, in those days, you know, most students who went to Frankfield High School either ended up at Jamaica School of Agriculture, JC, which is now where the police headquarters training school is located, or we end up in the police force. I wanted to be a public health inspector because my mentor and the only person in the community who was educated was a public health inspector. So I applied for that. I didn't get through. I went to teach for a couple of years at Sunbury All Age School. It's a rural overlooking Mandeville.
A very good school, therefore.
Very good school, Sunbury All Age. And then I decided to enter Michael College, where I did double option science. So it was sort of purely by chance that I decided to go to Michael. That really wasn't what I wanted to do. But I think it was quite fortuitous that I went there.
Yes.
Because I did my internship at St. George's College as a young teacher. Integrated science, a third form, and within 3 years, I was Dean of Discipline for third form, for grade supervisor for third form. And so even though I've been in teaching and education for a long time, the truth is I've only taught for about 5 years because I went on to being Dean of Discipline at St. George's College, and I went on to being Vice Principal, Dean of Students, went and did some studies at Boston College University in Massachusetts, School Administration and Management, and came back and was asked to be the principal at St. George's College at 32 years old. So and I spent overall 16 years at St. George's College, and then I landed the job at OEC 25 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
As Deputy Director of the Overseas Examinations Commission, and then in 2003, Executive Director and CXC Local Registrar in Jamaica. So, you know, the truth of the matter is my career path has been sort of miraculous. None of it was planned, but it happened.
Yes.
And I think I'm a teacher, but really and truly most of my work has been in administration. Yeah.
Mr. Stephenson, seeing one person in your community that you looked up to, that person, you know, being certified and in a stable job, how did that motivate you to want to become certified yourself?
Right. So he was a public health inspector, and I thought, you know, my God, he was such a cool guy, and I wanted to be like him. I have to tell you though that I had an aunt who always called me a teacher from I was a little boy. She always called me teacher, and I think that even though I wanted to be a public health inspector, the truth of the matter is I think I was meant to be a teacher. And that's how I ended up at Sunbury All Age School and ended up at Michael. So she was a big motivating factor as well.
Could it be then, as you began to become more exposed to other opportunities in certification, that is what began to change your career path?
Well, I think the key for me then and for young people now is that we need to get certified. I mean, that's the key. And we see a shift in the desire to be certified, especially among young men, and that's unfortunate. And it's also a function of our education system. But the key thing is to get certified, because once you're certified, and especially if you have multifaceted qualifications, the opportunities that are available are just immeasurable. And I think that's really where we need to go.
Oh, well, that's a nice way to bring this conversation to a close, really leading in the proctoring of exams. I want to thank you so much for joining us here at Piccadilly Talks, Mr. Stephenson. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thought we were going to hear a lot more. But,
well, you can always join us again for another in the series, but for now, thank you so much for joining us here. He's the Executive Director of the Overseas Examinations Commission. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.